We don't sit down and say, well, now, let's see, 1/10 of our articles will be sports, 2/10 will be, and so forth. We don't do that sort of calculus at all. It's more an art than it is a science anyhow.
Would you say that Jet follows a more close formula?
No, Jet just whatever is out there, it picks it up and presents it.
Then what is the purpose of the Black Communications Network to the people, to the community? What is the exact purpose?
The first purpose is to inform. Part of the purpose is also to entertain, okay? But the first purpose is to inform, so that blacks in Los Angeles will know what blacks in Detroit are doing, politically speaking, so that blacks in Detroit will not make the same mistakes that were made in Los Angeles in the political campaign, as a case in point. I mean, I just sort of picked that out of the air. But there is a certain cohesiveness that is generated by a communications vehicle like an Ebony magazine, which reaches everybody, you see. The informing of people develops in people a sense of community, a sense of nationhood, indeed. So that's the essential purpose of any communications vehicle, indeed. You see, to give people a sense of oneness. This is what the black press does. Yes, ma'am.
What type of interpublication communication goes on between the Johnson chain and the other black newspapers and magazines in the country?
Oh, just today, not just today, but just yesterday, the editor of Essence Magazine, which is a women's black magazine published in New York City, was our luncheon guest. We're in constant contact with John Sinstack, whose plant is located about 2 blocks down from us. He's in the office all the time. We're members of the Black Publicists Association. We dues-paying members. We're in constant contact. And on the reporting level, I know all of the black reporters on the black publications. It's no big thing. Yes, ma'am.
What do you think about the Essence magazine?
It's coming along. I didn't mean to be that abrupt. It's a good magazine. It's a darn good editor. The editor is really sharp. Marcy Gillespie, is that her name? She's really sharp. Very impressed with her.
Very popular.
Yeah, I really think so. I really do. Yes, ma'am.
What about legal entanglements? Do you read very many? Like, I'm familiar with the one going with Will Chamberlain now. Could you expand on that?
We don't-
Is Will Chamberlain suing Ebony magazine?
No. I mean, Will Chamberlain got a lot of criticism from readers of Ebony magazine for those silly statements that he made in his book, that he allegedly made in his book about the black woman, being, what was the term, being uninhibited, and therefore he doesn't dig her and all that kind of foolishness, he doesn't relate to her and all that, So he got a whole lot of criticism on that account, but he's not suing us. And if he did, he couldn't win. Way back there. With making funds available to black students and so forth. Did I see a hand over there? Oh, he's just scratching. Oh, okay. You almost missed it.
You mentioned the Negro College Fund, and I was going to ask, what's their purpose? What do they do with the money that they get?
Oh, they help to finance the 33 member colleges of the fund, the 33 black colleges that are members of that fund. I see.
You see as any part of your mission, talk about the white leadership that you have for FD and how they learn about the black situation. Do you see any part of your mission for helping the black leadership understand the white situation?
They couldn't have survived if they didn't understand it. We don't have to help them. That's how black people survived in this country. They understood, to some extent, white people and knew how to maneuver around them, so that there's no whole lot of special information that they need. They've gotten it, like out of the mother's milk, really. I'm not trying to be sarcastic about it. I'm very, very serious. I'm very, very serious. What I'm trying to say is that the slave did not understand the slave master. The slaves would not have survived on the plantations. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, you mentioned several times how a lot of things have changed in the last 10 years, the last, last generation. Some of the white situation is also changing in the last little while. One of the things I would worry about is that the black leadership, or your blacks in general, do not lock all the white situation into what it was a few years ago. And I wonder what part of your responsibility or opportunity might be in helping those white circumstances that are changing be interpreted to the blacks, as well as you want to understand how the black situation is changing.
I assume that when you tell me that the white situation is changing, you are saying in effect that the white situation is changing in some positive direction. I assume that's the intent of what you're saying.
I would like to think that's right.
You would like to think that. Now, I would like for you, if you will, to be just a bit more specific and give me some specific areas where these positive directions are occurring.
I don't want to get on any soapbox and get involved in that kind of thing right now. You know, you point out how the 1/3 of the students are in integrated schools. That's changed from what it used to be. On one hand, I can worry that 2/3 are not integrated, but 1/3 are changed. Some communities are doing things differently. A lot of things are changing in our whole society. The black community is a part of our whole society. The white community is a part of our whole society. We are all going somewhere, not standing still. And I think this is a part of our dilemma, is to understand where we're all going together.
Yeah,
I really don't think we're locked in any one group.
right. Well, I tell you, I'm impressed with Watergate. I'm impressed with Watergate because
Be impressed too, I don't know.
I'm impressed with Watergate because I think it epitomizes white politics in this country, which is essentially immoral, you know, depraved, you know, and a political style which should not be imitated either by black people or anybody, you know. And I would insist that political style. Look,
You're making black and white out of it, see,
oh, I'm not making black and white out of it.
I'm not part of the political world either.
I'm suggesting to you that Watergate, from my point of view, from the point of view of black people generally, is not an exception. It is the rule. If it were not the rule, racism would not have been possible in the country. Slavery would not have been possible in the country. If the mindset, which is represented by Watergate, was not always here historically, you see? So that when you tell me that there are positive changes, you know, I'm once again want to press you and ask, you know, what specifically do you have in mind? Are the schools better for black youngsters in this country? Are they really better?
Is this university better for black students than it was 20 years ago?
That's my very point.
You lock in and saying this is the way it was, and it still is, and always will be.
Well, I'm not talking about the future.
You're all going to be in trouble because you'll never make any progress.
I'm not talking about the future. I am saying that in education, in housing, in employment, and I'm sure in a number of other areas, the situation for most blacks in this country has not improved markedly. If there's been any improvements in the black community, it has been for the black middle-class person. The black middle-class person has made tremendous strides in the last 10 years. But the employment situation for the lower-income black has not improved. It has gotten worse. The schools have gotten more and more crowded. The houses have gotten more and more substandard, you know? So that, you know, don't tell my brothers down in the Delta of Mississippi that, you know, you're better off, and the brothers still walking around barefooted and half hungry. Yes, sir.
I'd just like to talk on that point and try to clarify some things for the gentleman. You know, I think that he's talking about the frustration level that whites are having in terms of how they relate to blacks, how blacks perceive them. And I can understand, beg your pardon? Somewhat. Okay, well, somewhat. I can understand how they have that frustration level. However, the magazines like Ebony and those we've been talking about are being directed to a large population covering very
Was there another question? Yes, ma'am.
Apropos of this whole discussion and some things you said earlier, I understand your need to be primarily concerned with your black readers. But it occurred to me during your talk that I just became aware, we whites suffer from some awful ignorance sometimes. I just became aware that there were such things as black newspapers a few years ago. And the thought occurred to me during your talk, has the black press ever historically or now tried to reach the white people with the story?
Not consciously. I mean, their prime.
It might be important to all of us.
Maybe so. The fact of the matter is, even if they tried to, they were not wanted by the white communities of this country. They were pretty much rejected. And indeed, in many cases, they were simply forced out of business in one way or another. The white advertisers would not advertise in the pages of white newspapers, and that's still a difficulty. A lot of black newspapers are living from hand to mouth because they're not supported by the advertisers that support the general newspapers, you see. So they were forced, by economic circumstance to turn exclusively to their own people in order to survive. And that's still largely the case today. Now, Ebony is one of the, sterling exceptions to that. The bulk of the advertisers in Ebony magazine are white advertisers in this country, But that's a great exception. It really is. Yes, sir.
Could you make a comment on black English?
What do you want me to say?
Well, some say it's a substandard form of English, others say it's a historical, modification of English by historical realities.
Okay, I suppose it's pretty clear that when you move through the black community, you hear, all kinds of expressions that you do not hear in the white community, and that many of these expressions are extremely clever and very picturesque, that there's a certain genius involved in that mode of expression. And the question confronting many educators, black and white educators, is whether or not that thing called black English ought to be encouraged on the campus, or whether or not it ought to be supplanted by something called standard English, on the assumption that the standard English is superior to that thing that we call black English. My own position is that it's important for my son and my daughter to be able to speak black English so that they can relate to all levels of black people that they're going to encounter and that they are encountering right now. But it is also important for them to have, to be fluent with what is called standard English, since this is probably the area that they will operate in occupationally. My daughter, for instance, wants to be a chemical engineer. I don't know any black firms dealing in chemical engineering, so that she'll probably be dealing with white folks, and she'd better be able to talk, in the man's English as she wants to survive, you see. But I would be opposed to any efforts on the part of us educated blacks to insist that those blacks who speak black English somehow purge themselves, make themselves whiter than snow, linguistically speaking. I would be powerfully opposed to that, and would insist that we ought to maintain both idioms. Both are important. In some respects, indeed, the black idiom might be more important, at least from the point of view of the black person the bulk of whose time is in the black community.
Is this reflected in say, Johnson's publication, in which they employ both black English and standard?
Well, if you read Lerone Bennett's writings, you will discover that it is, and if you read my writings also, and some of the others.
I guess we can take one more question, and then we'll have to.
Back there.
Is there any place in black communication for white journalists, and also do you see any role for white journalists to play in helping the black situation?
Now, we are a equal employment what is the phrase? Equal opportunity employer? We don't bar white people from the staff. The fact is that by and large they don't apply. Now some do apply, and some there are one or two on the token whites on the staff right now, and there have been one or two in the past. There have been, you know, one or two of whom were pretty good. I would hasten to insist. Now I would say this though, that white reporters, by and large, not being acquainted with the black community, are at a tremendous disadvantage. Many of them try very, very hard to, you know, catch up on their educational deprivation, you know, and some of them with some success. But it's awfully difficult. It's like me going and working for a Chinese newspaper. It's the same sort of problem, you see. But like I say, you know, if you got any stuff, we are interested, and we will listen, and we will read your application. Thank you very much.
I'd like to mention that tomorrow in the Great Hall,